It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Yes, everyone. Welcome to 41 is the Mic. It is another 13th in a row victory edition of 41 is the Mic. I am Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest, alongside not just an Emmy Award enthusiast, but an Emmy Award winner, Nick Jacobs from KSHB 41.
Hi, season's greetings, Matt. Gold trophies are in the air right now.
For those of you who missed it on social media, but heard, we were talking about it coming up on the Tuesday night Chiefs Digest live stream. Nick was nominated for twice for the same Emmy Award in the Mid-America Regional Emmys and walked away with the trophy in the category.
Yeah, man. I've been trying to get a Chiefs show to win an Emmy for a while, but those pesky Chiefs organization kept getting in the way. But 65 Toss, Power Trap, and Rob Reno and the guys over there do a phenomenal job. So it was always a tough hill to climb, but this is one of the rare years where it happened. So I'm going to enjoy it. And, now I've just got one show left, to fingers crossed, to hopefully win someday with. It's a high school show that I do on Fridays. So we'll see how it works out. But I mean, look, I'd given up at one point that I was going to win one. So in fact, I've won two in a couple of years. That's I cannot complain, Matt, because it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of work that people think you and I probably just do this podcast and you write some articles and I just tweet stuff and watch coach's phone. But there's a lot more stuff I do in a day, and there's a lot more stuff that I do that has nothing to do with any of what people observe from a Chiefs perspective. And I've been doing that since I got out of high school in 2004. So it's a long road, a lot of sacrifices, and miss a lot of family events. You miss a lot of holidays. You end up not having some relationships work out because you have to choose work sometimes, especially when it's sports and Chiefs and stuff like that. So, all that combined, I'm not saying that it eliminates what, all those choices, but I mean, it's at least knows that somebody in other regions that voted for it at least recognized and appreciated the work. So thank you to each one of those people. And then obviously everybody at 41 that logistically helped put those shows together, and the staff as well, the coworkers and everything that helped make those shows happen.
Yeah, you definitely have a great team over there, and you as the producer of the team, very happy for you, my friend. Very proud of you. Congratulations. And, you make the job sound, really, really terrific, by the way. And people usually, people say, hey, you, Matt, as a beat writer, it's great. Your job is the greatest job in the world because you get to go to the games and watch for free. Your job's even worse than mine because you do all those things and you don't get to go to the games, period. You're producing in the studio.
Most of the time, yeah. I'm in my studio cage, working on the shows that happen. So yeah, no, it's all right. It's all right, Matt. You get used to it after about 20 plus years. But I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't cool when I got to go stand on the sidelines for the Chiefs-Colts playoff game and got to catch that pass that fell on the ground that Cyrus Gray should have caught and bounced up into my hand while I'm holding the camera shooting the game.
That was very impressive, by the way.
Mick and I were actually talking about that earlier tonight, and I was like, oh, yeah. So, yeah. No, I mean, there's been some time I've been able to be on the field for Chiefs games and everything and all that stuff. But, I mean, hey, I get to go shoot high school on Fridays. I got to go to Platte County this past week against Raytown. And then also went to Oak Park, Park Hill for a little bit and went back into our high school show. So, as you know, football season's a really busy time of year for me. I'm going to be busy up until the Chiefs season ends. And then, then we'll go full swing into college basketball. But this November is like really the busiest time of year because you got college basketball. You're going to have high school basketball, some other high school winter sports starting up. You're going to have Chiefs, and Chiefs are in full swing. You're in a rhythm with that now. College football still going pretty strong this month. Kansas City Current is getting to start playoffs. So, I mean, I could go on, but November is one of the busiest months. And there's another time, I can't remember if it's in February or when baseball is getting ready to start in March, April, another huge time that's just busy as can be.
Yeah, we appreciate you doing that for us, Nick, because we all love the coverage at KSHB, and you guys do the best job in town. So
we try our best, Matt. We aim to please because we're a voice for everyone. That's what our motto is.
That's my relatively unbiased take on it. But okay, now I'm going to go. I'll show off my segue skills because
just crush it.
We're going from talking about one victory for Nick Jacobs on Saturday night at the MA's to the Chiefs' victory over the Las Vegas Raiders at Allegiant Stadium, the site of which we can once again talk about Super Bowl 58 and the championship there. And I mean, I got the vibe all throughout this game, Nick, that this was also the Raiders' Super Bowl. I mean, having seen the Raiders this season, I mean, I think they had more life in them.
Oh, yeah.
There's certain things they still couldn't do. I mean, the Raiders haven't been able to run the football all season. And not only did they not run the football on Sunday against the Chiefs, they ran it worse than they have most of the season, but that's because the Chiefs defense is so freaking good at stopping the run. But what was your, let's start with that first, because obviously the Chiefs defense, once again, as the offense had its moments, but this was a defensive-driven game again. The Raiders had a little bit of success coming out of the gate. What were they trying to do early, and what worked on those first couple of drives?
You're talking about Raiders offense, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So my theory is this. Antonio Pierce was kind of the equivalent of what Nick Bolton is now for the Chiefs. Antonio Pierce knew everything Spagnuolo was going to do, what he may do down and distance-wise, what tendencies they were showing, and how they needed to attack it and how they needed to stay in the game. So part of what their strategy was, they were going to get the ball out quick so Chris Jones could essentially be ineffective. And then they were going to move Gardner Minshew around if they had to. And then at another point, they had the receivers, and I'll show it. I'll find a couple of clips and show it. They had the receivers pointing. They had them pointing at the guys that were going to blitz and identifying who potentially were going to be the threats and the blitzers. And they had them point long enough so Minshew could look both ways and see and adjust whatever he needed to. And so the team collectively was on the same page about who was potentially going to be hot on the route, maybe where the blitzer was coming from and how to adjust accordingly to it. And you don't do that unless you're Antonio Pierce that knows Steve Spagnuolo's scheme in and out, because you ran it for years and years and years on end. I'm saying the edge that they had today, the Raiders did, is because Antonio Pierce knows Steve Spagnuolo and worked in his scheme and grew up on his scheme in a lot of ways and had a successful career because of it. So I'm just saying like that's where a lot of where that was coming from today. Look, I would love to have seen Brock Bowers in a Chiefs uniform. I mean, I know Xavier Worthy wouldn't have been here because of it, but man, Brock Bowers is so much like Kelce. I mean, I saw it in past weeks, but I was hoping Chiefs fans would get to see it more. They didn't get to showcase that Bowers had against the Broncos and a couple games, I want to say, against the Steelers or somebody of that nature, where Bowers really, really shined in those games. And the Chiefs did a good job holding him in check for the most part. And then the Raiders did a good job. They knew when the Chiefs were going to be in some zones. They had guys working certain ways to try to kind of bait the zone coverage here and throw over top there, or stretch it here and work it there. And then the Chiefs adjusted accordingly on both sides of the ball, probably after about 3 or 4 series. I mean, the Chiefs had a successful first series on offense, but there was a couple series before they finally got a really good pulse on it, and then the Raiders were cooked there for a while until the end.
Yeah, Bowers, I thought there for a while was just going to take over the game. First half, he had 3 catches for 39 yards, took out Najee Johnson, knocks him out with a concussion because he's just that big of a athlete and a bruiser. I mean, he's strong on top of that. Brian Cook got banged up a little bit. I mean, he stayed in the game, but I mean, he had a big first down pick up there that I think 9 out of 10 tight ends in the league, Brian Cook makes the tackle for a stop short of the chains. But you're not stopping Brock Bowers there. You're just hoping to absorb the impact and get him down at some point. But after that, I mean, after those first 2 drives, particularly, I think the Raiders had 125 yards on those 2 drives. I think they had 102 yards the rest of the game after that. I mean, it turned on a dime. I mean, the Chiefs defense tuned in finally. They were able to take Bowers out of the game. The blitzes started to work. What kind of you mentioned why the Raiders were able to have some success early. What did Spagnuolo and the defense do to change that?
they made them guess wrong on some of their blitzes, for starters. Because in the second half, third and fourth quarter, you'd see guys, they'd start to point, and then some of those guys dropped in the zone, and the blitz actually came from the other way. There was a time where they misidentified McDuffie, and he came screaming off the edge at one point.
Blitz. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Spagnuolo's like, okay, Antonio, you want to do this? Well, check this out, bud. You don't realize how athletic this corner is over here, and you're going to get to find out and remember it for the winter schedule and see you on Black Friday. So like, yeah, there was a fun little cat and mouse game between Antonio Pierce and Steve Spagnuolo, with the influence that Pierce had throughout the week and what Steve kind of pulled out of his bag of tricks. And then the Chiefs just kind of mixed up coverages to where Gardner had to hold on to the ball a little bit more at times, which got Chris into rhythm and got that pass rush into rhythm, got George into rhythm. And then using Leo Chenal as a defensive end at certain spots it was very effective with how they were able to kind of stuff them run-wise a handful of times and really take away that perimeter run.
Yeah, that's what kind of, blows me away. We've continued to see the evolution of Leo Chenal is, we saw last year, using him on the line a little bit as an edge rusher and a more of an on-the-ball linebacker. Mm-hmm. But now you're seeing them willingly putting him out there in run situations even, to set the edge on the run. And he had some really good snaps there. I mean, I think there was one, there was one time I think that, he kind of overplayed it a little bit, but still ends up making the stop for 4 yards. I mean, that's going to happen. But when your bad play is that you gave up a run for 4 yards, especially on the day when you held the opposing team's running back to 15 yards on the day on 14 carries. That was just another example of this Chiefs defense and what it's able to do against the run game.
Yeah. So look, that goal line stand the Chiefs had, I'm just going to get into it now. I mean, that goal line stand they had after the interception, like that was just them physically dominating that Raiders O-line. Like, they pushed them back. They shot the gaps. They overwhelmed them. And there was absolutely nothing the Raiders could do about it.
And that was a play, kind of a situation in the past that, the Chiefs, so many times we've seen the Chiefs defense get in that situation, and we've seen them get to fourth down. We've seen them get the third down stops and then not be able to put it away. I mean, I think back to, the game against Cincinnati where they stuffed Cincinnati, got them down to the third down. Cincinnati, not only, did the Chiefs then commit 2 straight penalties on fourth down to give the Bengals 3 cracks at it. I looked it up, Nick. It's been almost 2 years since the Chiefs defense had stopped and gotten a stop on 4th and goal. It just seems like it's been a long time that they've been able to get 3 stops, but getting that 4th one can't always seem to get it. That was a good one today.
Yeah, it was a memorable moment. The Chiefs you got to have desire for that. You got to have will for that. You got to have determination for that. And that's one of those moments that the Chiefs are going to pull on down the road whenever they face some other physical teams, or maybe even, if the Chiefs do make it to the playoffs. I just got to hypothetically say it that way, so I don't jinx anything. And, I'm not assuming, but like, those are moments that you really build on as a team. And for the Chiefs to be able to do that and kind of just impose their will the way that they did, that was one of the best series I've seen the Chiefs have during this era and during this run, because they were in a tough situation and they could have easily just given up the touchdown, not played assignment sound of football, and they went out there and they just dominated that series.
Yeah, bailing out your offense like that is something that you can bank on later. Absolutely, because this team is going to be facing more of those. They're going to have another 4th and goal situation down the road because they're the big dog. You're going to face it, whether it's the regular season or the playoffs. You're going to have that situation again, and they're going to remember, hey, you know what? We've stopped it before. We can do it again. As good as the defense was most of the game, the first 2 drives not counting, and also dismissing late fourth quarter where I think the Chiefs kind of took the foot off the gas, both sides. they did go just straight prevent defense, and we're okay with the Raiders scoring a touchdown as long as they, decide to run out the clock and not give themselves any chance to get 2 scores. But there were some, it wasn't a perfect game for the defense. And the Chiefs absolutely, certainly missed Jalen Watson on Sunday.
Yeah, between Najee was getting picked on, whether it's Bowers or some other guys, he was getting picked on with some of the passing game that the Raiders had. And then once he got knocked out and Joshua Williams took over, man, did Williams struggle. He struggled on special teams, struggled on defense. He got turned around a couple times. Joshua Williams did not have an ideal game to give the Chiefs ease that they are good at the corner position.
Yeah, it does give you pause. Josh Williams had opportunities in training camp before Jalen Watson was 100% to win that job. And, Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo never just said straight out, but the entire time that Jalen Watson was out, they just kept saying, we're waiting for somebody to claim this job. Yep. And that was really an indictment of Josh Williams at the time, because he was the veteran who was healthy. Najee wasn't really healthy at that point. And, and even Keith Taylor's on the roster now. Keith Taylor was getting an opportunity there. Very briefly before he got, dinged up. But Josh Williams was essentially given the job starting training camp to say, this is yours, take it. And he couldn't do it. And now, hey, he is by all intents and purposes the Chiefs' number 4 corner. Nick, November 5th trade deadline, if you're Brett Veach, are you trying to find maybe a trade option to beef up that, now that you have Jalen Watson out, you're going to get Najee Johnson back at some point, but you have to deal with the fact injuries are a possibility down the road. Yeah,
you hope this doesn't happen, but if they take another cornerback injury, they're going to be in a tough spot with what they've got going on. You hope there isn't a cornerback injury, but if there is, they're in a tough spot. And Chris Roland Wallace had a couple times today where he's still growing and learning to where you're not going to be banking on him in some of those roles if you don't have to. And we'll get into running back here in a little bit, and then receiver we can chatting about in a minute. But I would definitely be, whether it's free agency, another team's practice squad, or potential trade if there's a guy out there. There's no reason not to be trying to find an additional corner that could either play opposite McDuffie or kind of be an additional depth piece, depending on what they can get and what would be available for them. But yeah, for down the stretch and everything, they're probably gonna need a little bit of help at corner.
There's one more question I want to ask about the defense, but I'm actually going to wait because I want to pair it with another question. So that's a teaser for all of you. We are going to circle back one more question about the defense and actually pair it with something on the offensive side too.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm excited.
There you go. Maybe a little teaser for Nick too.
It's an appetizer.
Offensively, Chiefs. This was a better performance. I wouldn't say it was perfect. There were still a lot of blemishes, some blemishes on the offensive side. I think that the Chiefs more efficient, and maybe, like I said, maybe not as much picking up on the breaks in the fourth quarter. Probably could have put more points on the Raiders, but I don't think Andy Reid was looking to do that. And I think he would have. I think Andy Reid would have enjoyed scoring more points in the first half. He was fine with what happened in the second half, but. But let's face the biggest question today was going to be, what does DeAndre Hopkins do for this offense? And we got to see it in at least a limited form. What did you see as far as the impact that DeAndre Hopkins made?
The defense has had to respect what he's doing. It helped Kelce get open a couple times on a couple plays, whether he got the ball or not. It forced them to really kind of have to stretch the middle of the field a little bit more than probably the Raiders would have wanted. And there were some voids in zone coverage that the Chiefs were able to attack, including Kelce's touchdown and a couple other plays that Kelce had and some other guys had, just because there was a wide enough void in the spots and windows for Mahomes to be able to throw into and to get comfortable with. So DeAndre had that big clutch catch on the first third down to convert. That was huge for him. Big spark for the offense, big spark for DeAndre and his confidence. And as the game went along, you could tell he felt like he was integrating in. And like he celebrated with Kelce on his touchdown and everything, even though he'd only been there a couple days. Like, you could tell he already feels part of this team, and you already tell he enjoys kind of being in this offense. And because some of those guys, when they've come in the past, they've maybe a little just not sure. Okay, I haven't really got to bond with these guys in the way that they've all bonded with each other. I'm kind of on the outside looking in, but for him to celebrate that touchdown with Kelce already, I'm like, all right, he's, Chris Jones has helped him acclimate in certain ways with the friendships that they've got and everything to be able to kind of turn it into what they did.
Yeah, Hopkins, I think, had 10 snaps in the first half. I haven't seen what he ended up with in the second half. So I'm assuming he probably came in around 20. It could have been more or less. Mm-hmm. But like you said, I mean, that was impactful on those snaps that he had in the first half, because not only was it the big third down catch, but then you also had the catch that helped set up the field goal before halftime. I mean, and that to me felt, they were very similar throws, very similar routes that told me that, there was probably just little tiny package that they had in place for Hopkins this week. Is that how you would envision that we're probably going to see this going, that just week by week, there's a little bit more of the playbook that they give Hopkins and therefore a little bit more that he can work in?
Yeah, I think over the next month, you're probably... The time you may break glass in case of emergency is the Bills game, to where maybe you have more snaps in that one. But when I look at the Chiefs' schedule here, for the most part, the Monday night Tampa game, you may want him in some spots just to get him integrated in the offense and kind of get him smoothed into the offense and everything, and let him feel a part of it, let him know his work's recognized and that they appreciate it and everything. I'll be curious to see where Hopkins is at the next time the Chiefs play the Raiders on Black Friday, and more so by that Chargers game on Sunday Night Football in Week 8 on December 8th right now. I think that's kind of where I'll be interested if he gets past that 20 to 25 snap count range, if he pushes past that at that point. But yeah, no, there's no reason to really overwhelm him right now. I don't think they really have to do that until Buffalo. I think Buffalo is the time where if they need to make a play, that's when they'll need to make a play on November 17th. But, the Panthers game, he could be a part of, but not really have to push him. And then I personally, look, I'm intrigued to see when him, Juju, Kelce, and Worthy are all on the field together. That's what I'm intrigued to see down the road here, is how does it look when Juju comes back healthy, which, fingers crossed, that's Bill's game. That's my personal hope. That doesn't mean that's the reality of what's going to happen. And then Worthy gets to run certain routes specifically, and maybe those get opened up because the way they're using Juju, Hopkins, and Kelce over the middle of the field and in those short to intermediate routes, to where the safeties may not be able to respect the deep ball in the way that they want. But part of that is going to come based on what the Chiefs have going on at tackle at that point.
You're talking about the combination of Juju, DeAndre, and Worthy alongside Kelce. The way the Chiefs were hoping back in May and June that it was going to be Hollywood, Rashi, and Xavier and right. Kelce. Just a little bit different personnel, but yeah, you still got that same hope that when at least the Chiefs have their best receivers on the field, there's a critical mass. And that's kind of, with Travis Kelce Day, Travis having the breakout game of the season for him after a challenging start, 10 catches, 90 yards, first touchdown of the season. Was this just Travis eating up the Las Vegas Raiders like he does every season? Or was this a sign that, once a team has to pay attention a little bit to DeAndre, that things are going to get easier for Kelce?
I think teams are having to... part of it, I think, is the zone coverage. So part of the way Kelce was able to work the zones, I think the Chiefs knew what was coming, and they were able to kind of let Travis work the zones a little bit differently than they are some other opponents. But having a player of the caliber of DeAndre and the name he has, and just how defenses have to respect and recognize it, and not sure what he will or won't run in that offense at this point, there's just a lot of unknown that they have to respect a lot more than they probably want to. So I'm just telling you, though, I think if you have a healthy DeAndre, a healthy Juju Smith-Schuster to pair with Kelce, there's a lot more of that short and intermediate game that really open up, and the Chiefs can really attack certain points in the middle of the field, certain points near the boundary, and I think it'll be tough for defenses because they're going to take a lot of paper cuts, and I think they're going to get frustrated.
The Chiefs, I mean, the offense had a couple of struggles today. I mean, they had that one stretch of 3 straight drives starting on the 8-yard line. They were 1 of 3 on those. They had one of them goes 19 plays for 90 yards. I mean, it was a training camp long drive for sure.
Yeah.
Get 3 points out of it, but the other 2, 4 plays, 1 yard, an interception. There was a middle portion of the game that they did kind of struggle. What did the Raiders change? I mean, what was working for them that they had a little bit of success against this offense?
So part of it was that Max Crosby was jumping the snap count, and that was the way he was going wide 9 and knifing in a handful of times like he did, whether it was on Wanya's side or Jawan's side. The edge was already getting taken away. Whether it was in run or pass, it was already cooked. It was already done with. And if he got deep enough and was able to kind of rip through, Wanya was going to have to hold or hands to the face or something like that just to keep him from getting a full running start and clean shot at Mahomes a couple times. And so that was a piece of that. And the Raiders were really trying to jump that snap count. And Crosby was the only one that was able to really effectively kind of do it to where he looked off sides a handful of times. And he may not have been, but boy, did he look it. But then, you got Jawan Taylor from time to time where the two of them together look like they're just in tandem. So you're just going to think the refs let it go a handful of times.
If they're both moving early, nobody's moving early.
So then, so I honestly think the refs a couple times like, yeah, they're both doing it. So no, I'm not going to throw that. But yeah, I think that was a piece of it. When I get to the coaches film, I'll be able to test a little bit more. But I will say the Chiefs would have had tougher sledding if Christian Wilkins was out there. Well, I mean, he's got that foot injury right now because him and Crosby together, that's a tough tandem when those two are on the same side or they're on opposite sides and defenses have to account for both of them. So, yeah, there's some of that. And then the Raiders were just able to start getting some pressures that Mahomes had to make a couple decisions earlier than he would have wanted to.
Yeah, you kind of alluded to it. I mean, the one guy on the offensive side that had a rough day was Wanya Morris. I think was it 4 penalties that I think it ended up being on Wanya. It could have been 5.
I remember 3 or 4, at least 3 holds. Maybe a 4th, and I know he had a hands to the face.
He had a hands to the face, yeah. I mean, where are you on this left tackle situation? Is it, if you're the Chiefs, is it you got to stick with Wanya for now? Or, I mean, we really don't know where the development of Kingsley Suamataia is. I mean, is it time to go back to the rookie to give him a shot? Or, I mean, what do the Chiefs do at left tackle at this point?
What you said a while back on the podcast a handful of weeks ago when the Chiefs made the switch was until you're sure that Kingsley's going to go in and stay in, you don't put him out there. But where the problem's going to come in down the road here is if Wanya continues to have the issues he does, Kingsley doesn't get in, then I will start to question, and other people will probably start to question what's going on with the development of the tackles, because the Chiefs invested a 3rd-round pick in Wanya last year, and their struggles there. They invested a 2nd-round pick in Kingsley. So the Chiefs are investing the picks. So then the question becomes, what is going wrong technique-wise that they are not developing in time? What is going wrong there? So is that something that's position coaching with Andy Heck? Is that something that's just they have to work out their bad habits over a couple of years because of what bad habits they had in college they can get away with that they can't in the NFL because they're going up against the Max Crosbys of the world? And it's not the same as Josh Allen from Kentucky when Kingsley talked about being able to play against him and everything in the NFL and then playing him in preseason or, playing him in college and playing him in preseason and how he knew he could kind of belong and everything and that nature. So, I mean, I don't think there's any good answer right now about what the Chiefs should do. But, I mean, from a pass rushing perspective, they're not you've gotten through a tough stretch of edge rushers that were going to cause Kingsley problems if he wasn't ready yet. Because if I was in the Chiefs' shoes, I would have been nervous about putting him up against the likes of Crosby until you know that he was ready. So I wasn't stunned whenever Andy said that they weren't going to have, they weren't going to have Kingsley starting this week. I was like, well, they're going against Crosby, so it makes complete sense.
There was one stat that I saw that absolutely blew me away, Nick, and because you're talking about with Crosby, and we both saw the game, and this goes back to just how sometimes, I mean, in football, we're still figuring out things. We're so used to baseball, I think, in sabermetrics and the advanced metrics and all of these things. And there's, I think one, I can go on my side rant about just baseball is more suited to some of these things because of the 162 games and the repetition of sample sizes of all of this. But I mean, Matt Crosby wasn't credited with the pressure today. And according to, Next Gen Stats, and that was who says he wasn't credited with the pressure. I haven't seen Pro Football Focus to see if they feel differently. I don't know if you necessarily say it wasn't pressure, but Max Crosby still looked like he was absolutely destroying things and causing problems and wrecking havoc, which just goes to show that sometimes you can impact the game without appearing in the box score.
Right. Yeah, because Crosby was taking over some of those series by himself because he's either creating a holding penalty where the player had a hold and that may not count as a pressure. Mahomes was taking off earlier, stepping up in the pocket at times, and he got the heck out of Dodge and took off running a couple of times because he didn't want Crosby to be able to get a hold of him. So, there was a handful of times where Crosby impacted that game, whether the stats say it or not.
And just briefly on Mahomes, I mean, I think that this obviously, I think it was another step forward game for him. The interception I'm not putting on him. He's backed up into the end zone. The pressure was enormous. He gets hit. I mean, I don't know what the quarterback else can do about that. It just happens. My only really critique, I think, of the entire game that I saw, I mean, I think there was he got into drifting a couple of times where he kind of just drifted too far back in the pocket and probably didn't make life easier for his tackles doing that. But this seemed like another step forward as from Mahomes kind of getting more Mahomes-like.
Yeah, I think he had a lot of confidence in what they were going out there to do, what they were executing, what they were expecting from that Raiders defense. And so, I mean, that's why I think he's able to go 27 of 38, 262, 2 touchdowns. So I think he felt comfortable for the most part. He took off a couple times sooner than he wanted, but man, that one throw he had to P. Ryan, where the Raiders were in zone, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna roll out to my right, force these guys to give up, create that void for P. Ryan, runs out to the right there. P. Ryan, gets past the zone, and Mahomes just lofts it right in there, converts it and everything, and you're like, that's what he used to do with Kareem. It's what he used to do with McKinnon, and it was a thing of beauty.
I'm going to throw a couple of numbers at you, Nick, and you're probably already going to know where I'm going with this, but 20, let me make sure I got it, 28, 24, and 22. Those are the touches for Kareem Hunt in the last 3 games.
No.
His first 4 games back with the Chiefs. They're running this dude into the ground, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I have concerns with Kareem's age, how sustainable this is going to be the longer they continue to give him this level of workload. The wear and tear that's happening, the amount of bruises that poor guy's probably got, the amount of times he's probably going to sit in a cold tub right now. Because Kareem takes hits. He takes hits that a lot of other running backs don't take from a physicality perspective. I mean, he took a couple of hits today that I'm like, ooh, is he going to be able to get up from that one? That one hurt. And there was a couple times I got upset. I didn't tweet about it because I was busy, but like I got upset a couple of times where like he'd be laying there on the ground and he's just wanting somebody to help him up because he was on the injury report with a hip issue this past week, and he didn't want to have to, if he could save some wear and tear on some of those runs and have a teammate help him up, that would have been great. there was times where they didn't, and he just kind of had to roll over and kind of slowly maneuver himself so that he could do that to get back up comfortably and everything. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, this guy's taking on a workload for you, giving you reliable down and distance. Least you could do is go over there and a couple offensive linemen or tight end or whatever and lift him up. Doesn't mean they didn't do it every time. I'm just saying there's like a handful of times that I noticed it today that I'm like, come on. Like, this guy is carrying almost a third of this offense with keeping it favorable down and distance. The least you can do is help the poor guy get back up with the hits he's been taking.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, one number to look at, 2.8 yards per carry today. You can obviously put a little bit of that on situations, although I don't think that was really the majority of it. I mean, and you can probably put a little bit of it on the Raiders deciding that they were not going to let Kareem Hunt run the football. But that's also part of a continuing trend. I mean, his yards per carry have been going down game by game. Here's another one that kind of jumped out at me, Nick. You know, his first game with the Chiefs, back against the Chargers, he had a broken tackle for one every 7 carries. Against New Orleans, it was 13.5. Against San Francisco, it was 22. I haven't seen today's numbers, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure I really saw a broken tackle from, and I'm not sure you can break any tackles if you're only averaging 2.8 yards a carry, because what I saw today was pretty much Kareem getting hit at the line and then carrying or getting pushed for 2.8 yards. So like I said, I don't know that, it'll be any better today. It might even, if he didn't have any missed tackles today, then that would just be 4 weeks in a row where that ratio was, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, the evidence would suggest that he's just absolutely getting worn out. And, hey, when does Isaiah Pacheco get back, take some of the pressure off? I don't know, but I think you're saying that this is probably not sustainable.
For his impact on this offense, they're gonna have to start rotating to where he's not getting 20. I think they need to start kind of throttling back here a little bit, because they're gonna have a tough task against Vita Vea this week, because he's a heck of a plug in the middle of that Buccaneers defense if he's healthy and he's able to go, which I think he will be. Because I know there's been kind of hit or miss for him a couple games where there's been questions about if he'd play or not or how healthy he'd be. So if he's able, I haven't kept tabs on the Falcons game today to see where he's at, but yeah, Carson Steele needs to be learning everything he can from Kareem to make himself a better running back and to be able to kind of take those fresh legs and everything and be able to kind of maybe take some of that wear and tear off Kareem. P. Ryan's giving you what he can as a third down back, because that's what he's got left in the tank. Kareem's giving what he's got left in the tank, but I feel like they're running him into the ground quicker and quicker against some physical fronts that he's having to go against. And I mean, look, there's not much explosiveness in that backfield to begin with. So you've just got 3 guys that are variations of power runners and 2 that are running near empty at this point, with P. Ryan and Hunt that are giving you what they got available to them, and Steele that has a little bit more explosiveness in both of them, just doesn't have that same vision, doesn't have that same feel for it right now at this time as a rookie, which is to be expected. So there's just not this ideal balance right now. For the most part, and I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to get it and where they're going to get it, but man, if they can get it, it would help them out a little bit and keep that offense at a certain level from a run perspective.
I had one more quick question about the defense, and this kind of relates to the Kareem a little bit too in that regard, which is that, defensively, hey, Chiefs gave up 228 yards today. That's very good. They only allowed 4.1 yards per play. Very good. The 20 points to me aren't really indicative of this defensive performance, because one, obviously, offense gifted them 3 points that should have been 7, that the defense just made sure it was 3 instead of 7 with that goal line stand. Yep. And with the turnover on the other one was actually, it didn't even have 20 points there. It was on the short field off the punt and the penalty on Josh Williams that they ended up getting essentially 3 free points that were given to them, and that had nothing to do with the defense. It's that the Chiefs continue to win games like this because, I mean, hasn't this defense shown over not just the last 7 games, but 16 games going back to 13 games going back to last season, that this is who they are?
For right now, the Chiefs are trying to play complementary football and offense with what their defense is able to do. How long they can do that for, I don't know. We'll see. But here's the kicker. Whenever you look at everything, the top teams in the league right now, Houston's number 2 at 6-2. Bills are number 3 at 6-2. Steelers are 4 at 5-2. Broncos are 5th at 5-3. Ravens are 6th at 5-3. Chargers are 7th at 4-3. Colts, the Chiefs won't play, but they're at 4-4. And the Bengals are 3-5. So the Chiefs still get to play the Texans, Bills, Steelers, Broncos here very soon. They've already played the Ravens. They're going to play the Chargers again, but they've already played them. Already played the Bengals. Colts will be the only team in the top other 8 teams in the league that the Chiefs will not play before the playoffs. So if there's a team that's 100% going to be battle tested before they get to the playoffs, it's definitely going to be the Chiefs, because they're going to play every other good AFC team, and they're going to play some good NFC teams they played a couple good NFC teams along the way. So I'm just telling you, like, the Chiefs are going to know how opponents are going at them. They're going to know what they need to defend better by the time you get to the playoff scheme wise. So, I mean, look, the Chiefs are in a good spot.
Yeah, and their strength of victory in the AFC is the 4th best. I mean, they're beating good teams, and they've got, like you said, they've got a few more good teams up down the stretch that I think we're going to learn a lot more about this club. Hey, Chiefs pull this one out, 27-20. Next week, Monday Night Football, Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Arrowhead Stadium for the first time in a while. Chiefs only had one home game in October, but starting off November with the home game on Monday Night Football. We will be back to join you to talk about that one and break it down. So we'll see you back on 41 is the Mic next Monday night after the game. And obviously Tuesday night, come join us for the Chiefs Digest live Q&A, as we do every Tuesday night. Nick's kind enough to join me over there. Nick, you're the Emmy winner, so you get the parting thoughts as always.
All right, I'm gonna do this one differently. It won't be what it normally is. I'll go Johnny Drama and Entourage and say victory!
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.